Hi movers, it's me Sade with Move Nashville, and today I'm excited because we have Leah of High Garden here to just talk about the tornado, post-tornado recovery, and also some fun things about herbs and how nature is connected to movement. So I'm really excited to have her today. So welcome, Leah.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. It means a lot.
No problem. I'm so excited for this conversation because we had conversations off camera and just really inspiring conversations. So really happy to share that with our followers and with your followers. So this is definitely going to be a good time. And I'm feeling good because I'm drinking one of your teas today. Awaken the Wonder. Cheers. So because you do a lot of herbal mixtures and teas, I thought we could just, maybe start off the conversation talking about some of your favorite teas, or maybe even the tea that I'm drinking right now, like maybe, highlight some of its benefits or things you like about it.
Yeah. Well, that's like picking a favorite child. I love all of them so much.
Yeah.
Basically, with what happened and everything, it gave us an opportunity to really take a deep look in who we are. And we'll go deeper into that, I'm sure, in a little bit of the conversation. And that gave me opportunity to look even deeper into why I'm doing this, why we're doing this. It's not just a business. And the shop gave us the reason to have a space for people to come into and feel safe. And while we didn't have that, then what is it that we're doing? And my answer was accessible herbalism and putting herbs back in everyone's home, putting a plant person back in everyone's home. And that's what each cup that we make now is trying to do. We're trying to make this delicious cup that you look forward to drinking, but it can't stop there. It has to have all these really beautiful benefits that are ancient herbalism. And so while you're drinking Awaken the Wanderer, you're feeding your nervous system. You're rebalancing your adrenals. You've got nootropic herbs, so you're enhancing cerebral circulation. And so it's doing all these things while you're just like, oh, it's this morning cup that tastes kind of similar to that roastiness that I crave, and I enjoy it, And so that's the whole concept behind it, is really complex, beneficial brews that just taste good too.
Yeah, I love that. Just a really simple approach to, something that people may think is really complicated, but it's not. And it does taste good. Like you said, you crave like that roasty taste in the morning. So definitely replace my morning coffee. And I added some oat milk as well to it. So
really good. It's like, the yerba mate, so it's giving you this like antioxidant rich boost that isn't that jittery boost. It's that slow moving. And then you've got your dandelion root, your chicory root, your beetroot. And so you've got these liver tonics and nourishers. And then you have the mushrooms in there. So it's this deep adrenal, deep system nourishers. And all that's, and the lutheral root helping to rebalance the adrenals, and all that's happening while you're just like, yeah, I put some cream and honey in it. It tastes good, So that's the point. Like, this stuff doesn't have to be inaccessible. It's for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And I think not only are the products accessible, but what you're doing, like the education part of it, you're making it more accessible to people too, which I think is really great. And I guess we could kind of talk about it now, like how you are making the education part of herbalism more accessible to people.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I probably let it there on purpose because I'm so excited about that. And maybe the driving force, I will say just a little piece, is just of recent. My mom and dad got COVID, and I couldn't be with them for obvious reasons. And my dad has COPD, and, just all of this, like, they were the picture of, they better not catch COVID, And every single day I was on the phone with them, and I was overnighting them something very specific, because every time a symptom changes, you need typically a different herb to meet that symptom. It needs to change constantly. And I was able to, though it went really hard on them, they didn't have to go to the hospital. And, thank goodness modern medicine's there. I'm not saying anything against the hospital, but they didn't have to go because I was able to help tend to them with the herbs, and these herbs were there. And after it was all said and done, I was just so grateful for that knowledge and those herbs. I bust out, I just cried. And then my heart broke because I got to thinking, people don't have that anymore. They don't have an herbalist, a clinical herbalist that they can call every single day as the need changes. And that they're just like, here you go, do this, reach in your cabinet, grab this, grab that. And I decided I wanted to change that. I wanted to change that. Every person doesn't have to be a clinical herbalist. Within your community, you can find community herbalists, but there needs to be a plant person in every home that knows when that cough is wet, they can reach for sage in the cabinet. You got sage in your kitchen cabinet. When that cough is dry, you got some marshmallow root on hand, and you're going to grab that. And if you don't have either one of those, then because you've built a home apothecary, you're going to grab elecampane. And so you can still grab those simple things just because you are a plant person and there's that plant person in the home. And that's what we're building toward on the website. We're about to do a podcast. We're doing an herb school. We're going to do live Zoom trainings, you name it. We want herbs and herbalism in every single home.
That's so awesome. I definitely want to tune into the podcast and, just, expand my knowledge. As a registered dietitian, we got a lot of education in nutrition, but not so much in herbalism too. So that's one, sector I'm wanting to learn more. So it's really awesome to hear you talk, and it's getting me excited because I definitely agree that there should be a plant person or someone that can provide the education to people who may not necessarily have access to it. So that's wonderful.
And something I'd never thought about before is herbalism has been so repressed that, like, in your nutrition program, it's kind of risky for them to teach herbalism. And doctors certainly are not going, they're only going to be taught like these supposed risks associated with herbs, which honestly, if you saw the trials that cause these, it's insanity. And everybody's wanting to learn, but then it isn't so accessible. What if you didn't have a mother or a grandmother or a father or grandfather that was an herbalist? Or what if you don't have that $2,000 to go to a program? Or what if there isn't a community herbalist because there are hardly any existing anymore willing to teach you for free? And so there is the internet now that you can look onto. Goodness, how overwhelming is that? Which one's true? Which one's not? Who do you follow? Where do you go? And I don't think as herbalists, we've really sat down and humbled ourselves enough to think about how hard it is to get started. And so that's our goal, is to just meet you wherever you are and say, come on, as far as you want to go. You don't even have to go that far. You can just learn 3 herbs, and that's awesome,
Yeah. I love that. Meet them where they are. That's so awesome and so needed. So thank you for the work that you are doing. Now I'm so glad you're still doing that work, because I know with the tornado last March, that could have set you back, but from what I see, it looks like it just propelled you forward. So I really want to just talk about the tornado, and can you just walk us through that morning when everything happened?
There wasn't really a morning. It didn't seem. It started at like midnight and it just went. We knew there was bad weather. We were kind of ducking in our closets here. And our landlord texted us that our shop had been damaged. And our brains would only allow us to even consider the thought that maybe some windows were broken out or, this and that. And so we were planning on, okay, well, how do we sweep up the glass and everything and be able to open pretty soon, and make sure everybody still gets paid for while we're being closed, just blah, blah, the typical thoughts. And then someone texted me, and they text a picture that someone had posted on Instagram, and you just see the front of the shop crumbled. And I'm sure everyone's experienced loss to some capacity. We all have. And in that moment that you get numb and you don't believe it, That's where I went.
Yeah.
And that's our brain's way of just protecting us. And I said, oh, okay, well, it's gone. Okay. Well, all right. Okay. And as weird as it is, I just numbed out, and I didn't Joel beat me to the shop. I just couldn't go. And I got there at like maybe 10 o'clock the next day, and I showed up and I took it in and I saw it. And of course, at that moment, my brain was like, I think you need to recognize what happened.
Yeah.
And so I just broke down, went to my knees, and there were probably 30 people there, 40 people there that beat us there. They'd been there long before me. And a lot of them came and they circled around. I'm sorry. They circled around and they'd been cleaning and been doing all this stuff that my heart just couldn't even let me do yet, to pick through the rubble and everything. And at that moment, I think was the first time I truly learned to love people besides my immediate circle of people. And that, I know that sounds probably bad, but by being such a nature lover, I'm a wild creature. I relate more to my squirrel family and my plant family than I have my human family my entire life. I would admire ants for how they would gather together and make things happen and stuff. And I used to be like, why can't we be like ants? Just come on, And for the first time ever, I saw my people as ants. And that might sound terrible to other people, but it's a big compliment. And I saw these folks that hardly knew me and knew Joel, and they worked so hard all morning. And my heart just opened up, and it saw the beauty of my human family too. And so that's the main thing I remember about that day and that morning.
I wanted to say it's tragedy, and it's tragic, and I can only imagine, like you said, if you experience loss, that's a loss right there. But what you remembered the most was the people and the love and what your heart felt. And I think that's what we have to emphasize, because that's what keeps you going. And so thanks for sharing it. And I can only, assume those are partly tears of joy, from you, because you were able to really see your community come and, help you rebuild and be there for you and support you.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And the fact of the matter is, this is Move Nashville, and when something crumbles like that, okay, we go down a path in nature. We really only grow in loss. Like, a lot of times you can grow in positive times, you can change in positive times, but sometimes it's like, why? Things are easy, things are awesome. Why am I going to change? Why am I going to grow? And so, that was 10 years of Joel and I pouring every dime, every second, every breath into this space to slowly grow it into this thing that we knew in that moment when it crumbled, we aren't going to be able to rebuild this for a long time. Like, it goes, and I'd have to go into a long detail of why, because I'm sure people are like, it's a store. It was way more than just a store, but we were going down that path. We were doing that thing. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is what every day looks like. And that's the thing about nature and about great magic, great mystery, is that's often a gift when something's like, nope, whoosh, and it moves you off your path and it sends you down another path. That's the only way. Life would be so boring if you went down the same path and saw the same views. When you get switched, that's the only time that you get different views. You get different sights. It's like hiking. If you just walk the same trail every day, you're only going to know the same trees, see the same thing. When you break off and do that new trail, your brain opens up, you see new things, you grasp new concepts. And so that's really all that it is an opportunity to be different, to see different, to live a different life, still living and accepting and knowing and cherishing what all you gained in the path behind you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just kept thinking there's purpose in pain.
Yes.
Definitely so much. And like you said, you have to go through those things sometimes to see that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So you kind of already touched on like some positives that came out of it, but do you want to mention, anything else, shed some light on anything else that happened post the tornado?
So much. I can't believe it's only been a year. It feels like a million lifetimes.
What about like your were you already heavily doing your online store, or was that something that grew more after the tornado?
Yeah, it was very an afterthought. Like we could only do so much because the shop was, we hand make everything, we hand bag everything. There's only so many things we can send out, and the shop was doing well. So that was consuming most of our time and resources. But no, the online shop is definitely what put food on the table. Thank goodness for the online shop. And it gave, and post tornado, COVID immediately following things, everybody had to shift, everybody. And so, we're not different in that. We just happened to have a very different, like, whoa, we don't have the shop. We're figuring this out. Okay, we're also figuring this out in a world we don't quite understand yet. So it was definitely like a, one of those games where you spin people around a whole lot and then they're blindfolded, kind of a pin the tail on the donkey kind of thing. But there's, that's just how it was. And it gave us the opportunity to say, okay, so we've been shed, a lot has been shed, a lot has changed. Here's our opportunity. Who do we want to be? How do we want to be? What do we want to pull back with us? What do we want to let go? And that's the question I'm so grateful that we asked. And we said, we didn't even though we weren't a business, we were a social enterprise. We were kind of still caught up in Nashville is very competitive. It is. I'm just going to say, as far as small businesses, they're doing their dangest to be able to be on people's radar. There's so much. And, as a person in Nashville, you're so lucky to have an option for so many things. But as a small business, how do you stand out? How do you compete, and rent constantly going up? And so we were in that a lot in that mindset of like, okay, how do we stay? And when that left, it was like, all right, what are we looking at now? And it was just, I sat with it. I learned patience. And so I was like, even before the tornado, I started getting messages of patience for some reason, and humble. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what those meant, but they didn't sound too, good. But sometimes when you're just sitting and just kind of some thoughts come through, and I understood it. I got knocked down a little bit. So I had to question, am I that good of an herbalist? I don't have the shop to kind of surround me. All I've got is my offerings. Mm-hmm. What makes me special? And you know what came back to me? I'm not. And I didn't know how to sit with that. I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not supposed to do that. No, the fact is you don't have to be special. Sometimes we get this message that we need to be special. In a forest, and I'm going to give a ton of nature analogies because that's just my world. In a forest, it isn't about a tree being special. It's about them standing there and working as a unit. And that's how that temperature gets regulated. That's how oxygen gets made. That's how emissions come in. It's not because one tree is like, I'm special and I'm the only one that can make hickory nuts. It's about a lot of them making hickory nuts and acorns and then shedding for the underbrush and so forth. And so I realized I'm not special. And that's cool. But I do have this one thing that I can share with the rest of the people, with the rest of the forest. And so that was a little something that was really special after that. Here I am using that word again. That was a beautiful offering after that, is the lack of needing to be special, getting very humbled. And then patience was the one I struggled with a lot more because I'm a doer. I'm a maker. I'm a shaker, Mm-hmm. And so I thought patient. I was like, okay, well, this huge thing happened. We must have some major purpose coming through. When nature comes down, I don't know if y'all saw the shops after it, but the rest of the shops were mildly damaged, but ours was just like picked up out of the middle and gone. And I was like, man, if it's that direct of an attack, we got something cool coming. Like we must be supposed to be doing something. Mm-hmm. Like nature is speaking. We're going to do something major. And so I just sit each night and I'd be like, come through. What is it?
Like waiting
so patient, And 2 weeks went by, and would you believe I did not get my message yet? And 3 weeks went by. I don't know. And you know what? A year has still went by, and I don't know what exactly it is, the direction we're supposed to be going, but I've never been better with that. Little things show up, tiny little pieces, little bitty breadcrumbs pop down, and I'm fine with the breadcrumbs now. I don't have to see the clear path ahead or the end in sight. I'm just holding faith in the great mystery and just picking up the breadcrumbs as I see them and trusting that whatever that end, the goal, whatever it is, the trail, it's revealing itself when it's supposed to. And so that's also been a huge gift of the tornado and COVID is we don't like, we put everything we had into that shop, and we knew, okay, in like 5 years, I'm going to do this. And like in 10 years, we're going to do that. And no, you're not. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Like, yeah, like we don't have that kind of control. And there's beauty, like that can make you panic for a second, that loss of control. Like, what? I don't have control over everything? No, you sure don't. Like you can control you and your emotions sometimes, but that's it. And you do your best. You do your best and try to enjoy the life you've been given for the days that you have, you know? Sorry, went super deep there.
No, I resonated with that so much, Leah, just because for me, 2022 taught me how to let go of control.
Yeah.
You know, and be okay with not knowing the whole vision or, you know, why things happen, and just trusting that it will reveal itself when it's supposed to.
When it wants to.
Yeah, and that's a really good place to rest in, you know, when you learn to just rest there. So thanks for sharing. And I think a lot of people may need to hear that, because I think too, like you said, COVID was another test for so many people, and I think patience was something that we all had to like deal with and learn to deal with. And for some people it's easier than others, but I think when we share our stories, that helps that journey to be a little easier for other people as well. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thanks for listening.
No, it was really good. So you mentioned that Nashville is like really competitive, and I think partly of it is because like we have so many creatives and, you know, people who, you know, are creating things and creating it into businesses. So I know on a previous conversation, we talked about how creativity is part of our resilience. So can you maybe expand on that and maybe give us some examples of what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Nashville, it's just like, boom, tornado, boom, flood, boom, tornado, you know, and a lot of other cities experience that, but there's something really, I have to say, interesting, beautiful, the way that Nashville, after something, you know, whatever issues come along, the way that it kind of bands together and like blossoms almost from it. And I can't help but think it is because we're a city of dreamers, of artists, of creators, and the dreamers, the artists, the creators, you kind of used to be in what, you know, like a little either outside of the circle or having to shift and fit in, whether it was us as a kid, like I'm over there, like in the dirt and they're calling me squirrel and being like, okay, you know, like we've always had to kind of shift and change and figure out our space, and can see beauty in pain, or can see beauty in loss, and be ready to create from it and to offer from it. And so Nashville, it is interesting after you see tornadoes and floods and everything, people creating together, people supporting each other, being like, oh, can I help you do this? I'm a web designer. I'm a this. Like, okay, so you can't be physical right now, but you can be online. I do graphic design or this and that. Like everybody has all these gifts that they're so excited to share because it's their passion. It's not a job to them. It's an art piece. It's a passion, and they're excited to share it. And then also saw COVID, an even bigger piece of all these people were challenged, like our buddies at Frothy Monkey. You know, they were one of the first places to carry our tea. And I was worried about Ryan because he has there are several Frothies, and he's got a lot of employees that he dearly cares about. And, you know, we saw them and he was really concerned. He was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, people aren't coming in. I don't want to let anybody go. And then the next thing you see, they're like creating grocery packs of like from local farm produce and local makers of like, you can go in, and during COVID, people were having trouble. We're also feeling uncomfortable going into grocery stores. We found a way to support local businesses, putting together these grocery packs and support the people not wanting to go into a grocery store and hold his business together. And so it's just stuff like that of like taking care. And it's not just like, oh, I'm going to take care of me. Like I'm going to go to shop this huge restaurant or something and put these grocery packs together. It's like, how am I going to take care of me and be creative enough to take care of the rest of my community as well as I can? So that's just an example. And venues doing live music streams, and you could just see these places, or like our friends at Marche and Margot, like, yes, Marche closed down, but it was because they realized that they could put brunch and dinner under the same roof at Margot. And so it wasn't a failure. It was like, oh, why haven't, this can work just fine, and we won't have to stretch ourselves. We can keep everybody, we can keep everything. And it was just this natural blossoming. And so I don't know, just a lot of creative movement.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I remember seeing like the Frothy monkey doing the grocery bags, and I thought it was just pretty awesome and inspiring to see so many businesses, be resilient and recover out there, something that could have been so tragic. And I heard someone say this not too long ago. They were like, they believe that we will look back on 2020 and not think of it as like this horrible year, but we will look back and look at it as the year that taught us so much, that year, like we needed this year to happen. And I definitely agree with that.
And I saw people get closer to nature, which I can't help but geek out about. Though there were obviously, I'm not going to be like 2020 was the best. There was so much tragedy. There was so much loss. Like, please know that definitely I'm saying this coming from a place that recognizes like, dang, I'm so sorry for you that lost so much. My heart absolutely breaks. But we'd become so disconnected as a human population that's just like only communicated with humans, did our little speedy drive-throughs, like went in, just everything was so disconnected. And then all of a sudden we had to disconnect from each other a little bit. And everybody's just plopped down being like, what? I'm lonely. Like people started getting lonely and isolated, and what we had forgotten, and I think there was some remembrance happening there, is humans aren't your only family. Humans are not your only community. You have plant community, you have animal community, you have sky community, you have life all around you that only of recent years have we disconnected. And so people started bird watching and recognizing that they had like bird family and learning their names and learning their habits. People grew gardens because they're like, oh, maybe I should know how to grow food. Oh, what? And at that point, it's not even about survival. It's not because it's an end of the world zombie apocalypse, which is one like era that kind of happened. We're like, we need to, survive against the land. No, it's a thrival. Like, I want to reestablish community with this other community around me because I finally see some value in it. And I hope that stays. I would hate to think that things go back to normal and people forget this land and these creatures and everything that supported you when you needed them the most. I would hate to think that we turn our backs on them again.